Here, the wider Coolock area is currently in the midst of a cycle of savage violence related to the illegal drugs trade. Last Sunday, a 22-year-old postman, Owen Boylan, was brutally murdered in his garden at Clonshaugh Avenue. This was the fifth murder involving a local feud this year. There were 3 fatal shootings in May, including Jordan Davis, who was shot in front of Our Lady Immaculate School, Darndale, as he pushed a 4-month-old baby in a buggy. In January, Zach Parker, aged 23, was shot dead at a gym in Swords. Minister, this cannot be allowed to continue. There can be no normalisation of this activity. Children in particular cannot be allowed to continue to witness such horrible crimes on a weekly basis. The people of Coolock and the surrounding areas are citizens of this state like everyone else. They are honest, decent, hard-working people, raising their families, going to work, just getting on with things as best they can. They are entitled to the protections of the state like everyone else, but it certainly doesn't seem to be the case in this situation. Coolock Garda Station needs more resources and personnel to tackle this problem. DMR North, Coolock Sub-District, is the station involved. A report presented to the JPC meeting last month shows an increase in several types of crime, including burglary, up 34% on last year, and robbery from the person, up 200% on last year. The area is experiencing an explosion in population on the north fringe of the city in the Coolock Garda District. There needs to be a reorganisation of Garda districts because of this, and the mooted new Garda station for Northern Cross should be given the go-ahead immediately. Minister, I know you visited Coolock Garda Station in June of this year. Following your visit, 9 probationary Gardaí commenced in Coolock, and they are most welcome, but of course this is not enough. We need more community Gardaí in the area, as recommended by the Task Force on Policing. This would help stamp out on-street drug dealing, which would be welcomed by everyone. The report published this week by the EU Drugs Agency and Europol makes for frightening reading. Drugs-related violence and intimidation are nationwide problems. It details the 3-tier hierarchy of crime gangs, with the top tier now apparently gone international. Minister, not enough has been done to break up these drugs rings nationally. I welcome the publication of new legislation by my colleague John Curran TD in relation to drugs and children, and I hope that the Government will support this bill. The bill will make it a crime to use children in the distribution of drugs, and it will be a criminal offence to buy drugs from a person under the age of 18, or to cause a child to be in possession of drugs for the intent of sale or supply. Separately, we need to support our young people in their efforts to live active and fulfilling lives and avoid being caught up in the devastating drugs culture. There are a lot of youth and sporting organisations and individuals in the Coolock area doing great work with our young people, including the Northside Partnership, the Dublin North East Drugs Task Force, Sphere 17, RASP, the Kilmore West Youth Project, the Kilbarrack Coast Community Programme, and more recently Father Brian Shortall, the new parish priest of Priorswood. I am calling on the Government to launch a new initiative in the Coolock area, coordinated by the Northside Partnership and the Dublin North East Drugs Task Force, in consultation with these organisations to tackle the drugs culture in this area. You can call it a task force, or you could call it whatever you like, but we need to take this initiative, and we need special measures to be implemented in the Coolock district to tackle this escalating problem.
Thank you, Deputy Haughey. Minister Flanagan.
Thanks, Cahirla. Can I acknowledge the importance of this debate, and can I thank Deputy Sean Haughey for raising it? And can I also acknowledge the importance of raising this issue under topical issues in the manner which Deputy Haughey has done, rather than engage in the type of soundbite politics that we see every day on the order of business. And there aren't many of those people here now. but people who rush in, engage in soundbite politics and leave the chamber. And I very much welcome the points as raised by Deputy Hahey. And can I ensure him that the Government is committed to ensuring that Ireland is a safe and secure place for all, and the well-being of all our communities is a priority for me as Minister for Justice. I'm aware of the incidents referred to by Deputy Hahey, particularly the shooting that took place in his constituency last weekend. I've condemned this wanton violence, and I again call on everybody to pass on any information they may have, however small, by calling the Garda station in Coolock or the Garda confidential line. The deputies will appreciate that I cannot comment on the particular investigation or any other ongoing criminal investigation, but I can assure Deputy Hahey that we are making progress in tackling drugs and organised crime. Because I share Deputy Hahey's concern about the destructive impact which drugs and crime related to drugs can have on communities, can I say again as Minister, I fully agree on the importance of tackling such behaviour in an effective manner. Before addressing Garda concerns in the area, I want to take this opportunity to highlight the actions being taken on a range of levels to address matters. Because while policing is of course a key issue, we cannot address this issue as a policing matter alone. I think Deputy Hahey will agree. Indeed, I recognise that there is a need to address drug-related offending in a strategic, multi-agency way. Our policy in relation to drug and alcohol misuse is set out in the strategy 2017 to 2025, a hell-led response. But I want to particularly note that the strategy is unique among national drug strategies across EU member states in recognising the need to address drug-related debt intimidation at community level. It's important to note that the budget provided for Garda youth diversion projects, and I want to acknowledge the work that Minister Stanton is doing in that area. I also want to acknowledge the importance of community stakeholders and community leaders in this regard. Deputy Hahey mentioned the activity on the ground on the part of many people. In particular, he mentioned Father Brian Shortall, who I happened to see on television in recent nights. And yes, I agree with the points that were made by Father Shortall on the occasion, because work like that in communities play an important preventative role, showing good results over time, coupled with Garda enforcement action. In terms of the Garda response, I want to say the Garda National Drugs and Organised Crime Bureau continues to have a significant success in tackling issues. Understanding from the Commissioner that since it was set up in March 15, €167 million has been seized in terms of substance worth. 108 firearms. I would mention Operation Hybrid. And I also mentioned the number of Gardaí in the Coolock area, which currently, as of the 31st of October 19, a workforce having increased from 103 Gardaí and 11 staff, up now to 117 Gardaí and 16 staff. This means that an additional 73 Gardaí have been allocated to the DMR Northern Division since the start of 2016, alongside a 38% increase in Garda staff over the same period. And these numbers are still increasing, as is evidenced or will be evidenced tomorrow when the Taoiseach and I attend Garda College in Templemore and see the graduation of a further 200 new Gardaí. And I understand the Garda Commissioner intends to allocate additional Garda resources to DMR North from the attestation which is scheduled tomorrow.
Thank you, Minister. Deputy Hahey, please.
Thank you, Minister, for your response. The Taoiseach visited the offices of the Northside Partnership in September just gone. There he met the Chairperson, Nessun Vaughan, and the Chief Executive, Paul Rogers. He listened to the views of several local organisations who outlined what should be done to tackle disadvantage in the area. The Taoiseach's visit, along with Minister McGrath and Minister Bruton, followed some of the shootings that I've referred to earlier. The presentations he heard included a presentation of a loss of a teacher in Our Lady Immaculate School in Darndale. This was in the This case was put forward following the shooting of Jordan Davis right outside the school on a school day. The Taoiseach said that he would get back to the group with his proposals, but we are still waiting. I know the meeting took place in September. However, the Department of Education has since confirmed that the school will lose the teacher, despite the strong case made on that day. I note the collective call of former ministers in charge of the National Drug Strategy to the government to renew its efforts on the drug crisis, to beef up the local partnerships and the local drugs task forces, and to listen to communities affected as to what needs to be done. I think that was the big call recently by these ministers and several organisations working on the ground in relation to the drugs problem, that the communities just wish to be listened to. They have the on-the-ground experience and knows what needs to be done. As the Minister rightly says, it's not just a criminal justice issue, it's also a community issue, and the need to develop youth services and sporting organisations and to tackle disadvantage generally. I think the call from the ministers was a cry for help, and they just want to be listened to. So I think the government really do need to renew its efforts in relation to the drug situation. And as I said, Coolock, Gardaí still need more resources. There's an explosion of population in that area. A new Garda station is promised for Northern Cross, which the Cathaoirleach will be familiar with, and we really do need to ensure that those resources are put in place as soon as possible.
Thank you, Deputy.
Two issues Cathaoirleach raised by Deputy Haughey in his contribution. Firstly, let me undertake to the House and the Deputy Haughey. I'll be meeting the Taoiseach later on this evening, and I would be happy to raise the issue as raised by you with me on the matter of the Northside Partnership. I too had the opportunity of visiting the Northside Partnership, and I want to acknowledge the community work over a range of issues and pursuits being undertaken in that area, and I would be happy to ensure that Deputy Haughey gets an appropriate reply. And the second issue is on the matter of resources, and I'm pleased that it has been possible for the Government to sustain the level of funding necessary to recruit a further large increase of Garda numbers and staff, even in what is a very difficult financial climate. The large-scale recruitment and redeployment within Garda Síochána means that we are significantly increasing the Garda workforce, because Garda deployments in all areas of the country, as well as specialist national units, have benefited from increased recruitment, as also is the capital allocation on Garda Síochána. This year we invested €92 million in Garda capital projects, including the fleet, the Garda estate, Garda ICT. One of the key actions under the plan which was published last year, the Commission on Future Policing, which is in the course of being implemented, but this will allow for a new operating model on Garda Síochána. The object of the exercise being to reduce bureaucracy, to devolve power from Garda headquarters and result in an increase in the numbers of frontline Gardaí, because it's all about availability and it's all about visibility. And I welcome the announcement by Commissioner Harris as regards the new operating model is concerned. So, in conclusion, I want to thank Deputy Haughey for raising the matter, and indeed for raising the matter by way of topical issue, which gives him an opportunity to make his case and which gives me an opportunity to attempt to reassure Deputy Haughey of our commitment to the area. And I would be happy to engage further as time evolves.